Hello everyone and welcome to the first lesson on Unreal Engine. Go to the website and click on the Download Launcher button. After you download and install the file, you will see the Epic launcher icon. Go into it. You will see this interface and you can see the current version here. You will need to update it to the latest version, which is 5.4.3. To do this, click here and click Update. You will see that updating has started. You can check the progress here. Your projects will appear in My Projects, and you can launch them directly from the launcher itself. You can also take a look at the downloaded assets from the marketplace. Quixel Bridge will be downloaded automatically because it comes with Unreal Engine and you will use it quite often. So, updating has been completed and now you can run Unreal Engine. You can also install previous versions of Unreal Engine because sometimes updates can cause your projects not to operate correctly, so sometimes you will need them. I also recommend that you uncheck the target platforms checkboxes. This will save you a lot of space, and click Apply. So, let's launch Unreal Engine. If you are launching it for the first time, it may take a while. Don't worry, it should take a while, but next time Unreal Engine will launch much faster. So, let's go to Film, Video and Live Events and name the project. I'll find where I want to save the project. Select Folder and click Create. In the Start window, you will see this interface. You can see that I already have the sky, the sun, and some assets. By scrolling the mouse, you can zoom in, zoom out. By selecting an object, I can move it. By holding down the right mouse button, you rotate the viewport. Also, by holding down the left mouse button, you can move back and forth. By pressing the spacebar with the selected object, you can switch the mode to rotation, scale, and so on. It often happens that you get lost in the viewport and can't find the object because you zoomed out or something else. Just select the object you want and press F on your keyboard. This happens a lot to beginners, so remember this shortcut. Now let's deal with the outliner. If you select an object and press Delete, it will be deleted. Let's delete all other objects as well. I want to show you how these objects are added from scratch. They all belong to environment, and in order to add them, I'll go to Window and Environment Light Mixer. Here you can see skylight, atmospheric light, sky atmosphere, volumetric cloud, and height fog. These have very intuitive names, so we'll figure out how to work with these objects in the process. As you can see, the clouds are loaded, and I think I can start with the plugins I'll need in the process. Go to Edit, Plugins, and type in Modeling Tools. By default, they should already be there. If they are not, then click the checkbox and click Restart. After that, in the selection mode, select Modeling, and let's select Rectangle. If I move it to the viewport and left click, the rectangle will be created. You can center it right away. And I'll also set subdivisions to 100 and 100. If you don't know what subdivisions are, let me show you. If you go to the wireframe view mode, you'll see that subdivisions are. So this is the number of polygons. If you make it smaller, there will be fewer polygons. This is to make good deformations, but we'll deal with that later. It's a good rule to add them. Let's go back to the default viewport, and let's make the rectangle a little bit bigger. This will be our ground. As you can see, there are a lot of parameters here. Now I need the scale parameter. Let's click on this lock, which means width and height will be changed proportionally. Let's set it to 10 to start with, and then we'll decide what to do with it. And adjust the viewport as I like this. Let's remove the lock, and I would still stretch the width a little bit more. I think something like 20. I can also adjust it along the x-axis. I think that's about right. Let's adjust the camera again. Great. Now let's click on box in the modeling menu, drag it to the viewport, click, center it, set 0, and click accept. As you have already guessed, I'm going to start setting up our scene that you saw in the promo video. So let's get into it. Let's go over the light parameters a little bit. If you click on directional light, which is our sun, and adjust rotation, you'll see how the position of the sun changes. And the intensity of the light changes as well. So it looks like sunset. As you can see, the shadows are quite sharp. To make them smoother, I need the source angle parameter. As you can see, when I adjust the source angle, the size of the sun also changes. Keep that in mind. For example, if I make it 20, the sun will be even bigger and our shadows will be even smoother. Source soft angle speaks for itself. It also makes our edges even smoother. Also, a very important point is if you press Ctrl L, keep holding down Ctrl, and just rotate the mouse, you will control the sun. Use Command L on Mac. This makes it much easier to adjust the light. Let's now deal with volumetric cloud. Sometimes the clouds will not suit you at all and you will want to change them, so you need to change the material. The materials can be found here if you remember their name. However, let's go to Content Drawer and click on the All folder and type in Cloud. The asset that I need is ML Volume Cloud. Let's select it. Go to Volumetric Cloud and click on this arrow. You'll have the material applied automatically. And again, you can type it in here and apply it directly. As you can see, the clouds have changed, but the material is the same, but not quite. The first material was material instance, and the second material was just material. What's the difference between these two? So let's apply it again, and you'll see a completely different result. Let me explain why. Double-click on the material. In this case, it's a black box. And you'll see that I have settings here. And these settings specifically belong to the material instance. That is, I have one material, but there can be as many material instances as you want. So this will allow us to make as many variations of the clouds as possible without changing the basic material. So let's do that. Well, let's duplicate the original material just in case. Press Ctrl D and drag it into our content. Click Move Here and go to the Content folder. Now I will create a material instance of our original material. Click Create Material Instance. And I have it already selected, so click this arrow and I've got our material instance applied. Go into it, and here you can change the settings and do the art direction of our clouds. As you can see, there are a lot of settings here. You can play around with them. And I want to show you what material instance means. Again, I've applied the duplicated material instance, and now I'll go into it and change something. For example, in cloud shape, I will change the noise bias like this, and we'll clearly see what I'm talking about. So now I have the duplicated material instance. I'll select the previous one and apply it. You can see completely different settings. Great. If for some reason you go overboard with your cloud settings, you can always go back to the original and copy their settings. Let's double click on the original material instance and go back to the one we made ourselves. You may try too hard when adjusting it. Let's remove it. Double click. So as you can see, I have the original material instance. Let's right click here and copy all parameters. Let's go to our material instance and copy each parameter one by one. This is why it's important to keep the original materials and use material instances, because there's always a chance that you overdo your adjustments. I hope you have figured out what the material instance is and why it is needed. Then let's figure out what material is. To open the material settings, you can go to the material instance, click on the hierarchy, and you'll see the original material. It looks scary, of course. That's why there are certain settings here that are linked to the material instance. But if you suddenly want to change the behavior of the clouds, you can also change that here. For example, noise movement. I want to see where this node goes, and with some pretty simple actions, I can make the clouds start moving. So by clicking on the noise coordinates node, I can change the wind multiplier. Since this parameter was not added to the material instance, I'll do it manually in the material settings. Once you have set the correct value, you can close it, click Yes, and as a result, the clouds are moving now. Congratulations, you already an animator, as you can animate the sky. That's great. Let's move on, and the next plugin you'll need is Quixel Bridge. It's already installed by default, but if for some reason it's not, you know what to do. Restart it. So go to Quixel Bridge. There are a lot of assets here. They are all free and you can use them in your projects. To start downloading assets, you will need to register or log in. I already have an account, so I go to Quixel Bridge and select, for example, this asset, Urban Street, Pavestone, Gray Single. Select medium quality, click add, and as you can see, this asset is now displayed in the content browser. So I can close Quixel Bridge. And also let's take a look at the content folder. As you can see, the Megascans folder has been created. If you click on the object itself and drag it onto the scene, you'll see it's now at its minimum size. If you press the F key, you'll zoom in on the object. Right now, I have snapping working. If you want to disable position snapping, the object will move more smoothly. Okay, well, as you can see, our asset is pretty photorealistic. Let's scale it up to be sure. You can see that the light falls correctly on the object, and I can already make some compositions from it. I remind you that you can rotate objects, scale them, move them around wherever you want. I made the Stonehenge scene exactly like this. I downloaded similar assets and create Stonehenge. Let's take a look at this as well. In Quixel Bridge, you have a variety of materials. For example, this material automatically follows the camera, and I remind you that materials, this is a very powerful tool in Unreal Engine. It can both deform objects and move them. I'll deal with that later. Try to experiment with objects and download assets, but just don't overdo it because sometimes they weigh too much. But it's a lot of fun. I don't need this object anymore, so I'll delete it. What I really need is a kind of grass. Let's go into 3D assets, 3D plants, grass. And here I have so many options of grass. I like this asset. I'm going to choose high quality. And I remind you that if you value your hard disk space, you can choose low quality. I'll continue with high quality. I'll click add. And as you can see that I have added a variety of grass. What I want to do now, I want to apply this grass to our rectangle. In order to do that, I need the foliage skills. Let's go to the folder with our grass. I'll add it to the composition. Press F, zoom in, and let's see what it looks like. I'm certainly not going to arrange this grass manually. There are certain tools called foliage. So, how to do it? In order to apply the grass, I'll go to the foliage mode. As you can see, there are already all kinds of grasses displayed. I don't need all the assets now. I'm going to remove them. I want to show you how to apply them. For example, if I want this asset, I just drag and drop it into foliage. Be sure to save because sometimes Unreal Engine can crash. Click on the settings button with the selected asset, and I'll click the fill option. Be careful not to apply it immediately as I'm doing now. You can see 20,000 grass assets have been added to our plane. I don't need this at all because I want everything to be optimized and I want to be able to work comfortably without slowing down. So let's set radius to 50, and as you can see the grass has become much less, only 833 assets, but it looks pretty good and it suits us quite well. You will not deal with the rest of the foliage settings for now because I am okay with this result and it looks pretty cool. Let's go back to the selection mode. And as you can see, there is some strange behavior of the grass. It disappears from some reason. In order to fix this, I need to go into the material settings and set opacity mask clip value to 0.01. So the grass appeared, but still something is wrong. And to deal with this, there is such an amazing thing as Comment Console. You could say it's like cheat codes, like in a game, since Unreal Engine is a game engine. Therefore, you need to know some cheat codes. So the cheat code you need is foliage LOD distance scale 10. Let's zoom in and you can see that everything is good. Great. Let's move on. And I'm going to hide our foliage for now. And I remind you that Quixel Bridge has a lot of assets. You can go to the environment collection and you'll see a lot of different assets here. I recommend you experiment with them. Well, once again, I remind you that usually those who go to Quixel Bridge start downloading everything that is there, and I'm one of those people who did the same. So be careful, select only what you really like. At the moment, I need material. I'm looking for material for our plane. And I already have downloaded assets. Look carefully at the name, Nordic Forest Ground Pine Fine. You can find it in the search. I've already downloaded and I'll add it. And now let's just drag it onto our rectangle. As you can see, the material has been applied. Because beneath the grass, I need the ground. Good. Now the moment that catches the eye, of course, let's go into the downloaded asset, double click on this material instance, and I want to correct tiling. Click on tiling offset, and in tiling X, set 5, in tiling Y, also set 5. As you can see, I have changed the size of the material, and now everything looks pretty natural. Let's now go into the grass settings, and I want to add a little bit of color variation on the grass. Let's go into albedo color variation and add quite a bit of color variation. That's about right. Also, you can add wind, go into wind, click enable grass wind, and you can see that some wind has already been applied. Let's turn on other settings and adjust wind intensity, and it already looks very nice. And I'm already ready to render it. It's already a scene that looks very high quality. Try to experiment with the grass settings and select the result you like. Once you are happy with the wind, you can let's add a little bit. So close it. The settings will be saved automatically. Now let's talk a little about organizing the project. Go to Content and see I already have some assets, and it will be pretty good to organize everything. Let's create a new folder, name it Materials, and move our created materials there. In this case, it's clouds. Click Move here. So I have level. Let's create a folder, name it Levels, and move our level into it. Okay. I also have presets that were added with Quixel Bridge. In materials, let's create one more material. This will be emissive light. Double click on the material, hold down 3 on the keyboard and left click to create the needed node, or type in 3 in the search bar, and I need constant 3 vector. Great. Let's pick the necessary color. In this case, it's more yellowish, and drag our node to emissive color. Click Yes. Now let's look at the created material, create a material instance for it, and drag it onto our cube. As you can see, this material has started to cast light. It should be like this since I created the emissive material. Let's go back to the original material and create the parameters in order to control the material instance. Press 1 and create the constant node. Also, you can left click holding down 1 to create the needed node. This is just a value. I'll multiply the value, so search for the multiply node. And now I will multiply our color by the value I set. By default, I had a value of 1. Well, let's increase it a little bit so it's 2. If you look at our scene, the amount of light has increased. You can increase it even more, for example to 10, and you can see the scene has become even more illuminated. Let's make it 3 and click Save. Close Editor. As you remember, Material Instance allows us to change the settings, but I want the value that I added to the material to be displayed in the parameter, so go to the material and click Convert to Parameter. I'll name it Intensity. Intensity. And after saving, it will be displayed in our material instance. Let's close the editor, click Yes, I have saved it. Now go into the material instance and I have global intensity. Now I can easily change our parameters specifically in the material instance, which is very convenient. Now we have once again seen the importance of this approach. Okay, now let's deal with directional light. As you can see, it also has intensity. This is a night scene, so I can set intensity accordingly. Something like this. Also remember that if you press Ctrl L while holding down Ctrl and move the mouse, you will change the position of the sun. As you can see, when I adjusted the intensity, noise appeared. To remove it, you need this cheat code. The value is 0.2, and as you can see, I've removed the noise. Cool, since emissive light unfortunately works this way, noise appears, so use it carefully, and it is better to use light sources such as point light. Let's add point light to the scene. Let's see where it's located. And point light works correctly. It doesn't make noise. So I want to combine point light with emissive light. So I'll drag point light into box, and now I have it inside box. And as you can see, the light is displayed even through the layer is inside the layer. Here you can adjust radius, intensity, and make a kind of art direction of the light. Let's adjust the position and intensity values a little bit. Like this. Let's check if the result is okay. That's good. Now I want to introduce you to exponential high fog. To make it work even better, I need a checkbox next to volumetric fog. If you check the scattering distribution, it will affect specifically the light sources. There will be an interesting effect as light passes through the fog. You can also see the scattering intensity parameter. Unreal Engine is a very cool software because it simulates the real world. So if I increase the fog density, we'll hardly see the objects that are far away in the background. They will be blurred and so on, so the settings are pretty intuitive. If you want to adjust your fog even more, you can find local fog volume. Let's drag and drop it into the scene. And as you can see, nothing is happening now. In order for local fog volume to start working, I need to use a certain cheat code again. And here it is, local fog volume 20. As you can see, now I have a certain sphere. If I scale it, I have created fog specifically inside the sphere. And as you can see, I have one more art direction fog option, and this cannot be achieved with exponential high fog, which is a very good thing. Cool, the composition looks even more attractive. And I want to explain to you again why the checkbox next to volumetric fog is very important, because if it's off, let's see, the light doesn't sort of go through the fog and starts to leave an interesting light blur. Kind of bloom effect. If you want to control the intensity of this effect, you can adjust the volumetric scattering intensity parameter. And as you can see, the blur around the cube is bigger now. Additionally, you can achieve this effect with the camera settings or post-process volume. We'll deal with that later. So, our scene looks pretty realistic, and I think we can move on to the animation settings. In order to create animation, click on Add Level Sequence. Let's remember to organize the project. Let's create a new folder and name it Sequences, because in the project you may have dozens of different sequences that refer specifically to the level where your objects lie. Respectively, in each new sequence, the objects that you made on this scene will look different and will be animated differently. So let's name it Cube. I have a sequencer created. Let's go into the folder where our sequences are created. This is what it looks like. So when you, for example, reopen a project, you may not have the sequencer open and you'll need to reopen it. Let's drag our box into the sequences. As you can see, the layer and the rotation, scale, and position parameters have been added. The good news is that you can animate them. Let's save it and set the first keyframe. Let's drag the timeline to frame 30 and set another keyframe, but since this is a cinematic, I like to work 24 FPS. It's a film look, so 1 second is 24 frames. I want to make a certain animation of my cube appearing from the bottom of the grass. So I need a certain Z position. Let's remove the keyframes on X. First of all, I need to make that our cube is not there for 1 second, so I'm going to move it down. And the same thing in this frame. I'm going to move the cube down until the light disappears. That's good. Now, you can see that I have an animation. The cube is emerging from the grass. That's great. To make the animation even more interesting, there is a possibility to change the graphs of the keyframes. For example, if I select a certain keyframe and click on the Graph Editor button, I'll select the Z location, and as you can see, there is a graph because the animation is there, and you can adjust this curve. So to do it more correctly, click on these buttons, and you will be able to adjust the graph more intuitively. So on this graph now it is clear that initially the object is moving very slowly. As you can see, if I adjust the graph like this, so I want the movement to be fast initially. That is, our cube is flying out of the grass quickly and then slows down. So the graph will be like this. You can see that firstly it slows down a little, then accelerates in the middle, and slows down greatly at the end. It's pretty intuitive. and the result is consistent. That's good. That was a basic lesson on animation, so to say. Then we'll go a little bit further, save the project, and I think this scene can already be rendered. So before I do that, I want to show you one more interesting thing, like save layout. Accordingly, save layout will help you to leave all settings in the project, because if you close the project and reopen it, you will get a surprise. Level sequence will be closed, and perhaps the level itself as well. That is the first time you will have a feeling that your project is not saved, it is lost. But do not hurry to get upset. For example, as you can see, one asset, everything is red. I don't see my level, everything is lost. So I have to go and open the level again. You can see the level is open, all the console comments are lost. Also, I have no animation, so I have to go into the sequences and open the sequences. And this will have to be done every time, respectively. If you have a layout, you will have everything open at once. Moreover, you have to enter the settings. If you press the up arrow on the keyboard, you'll have the last settings. Click on them, they're saved, and apply them. And I think I'm ready to start rendering this composition. As you can see, I have default viewport and cinematic viewport. Use whichever you like. And to start rendering, let's create a camera. Assign camera actor. Once you've created, you can see that in the bottom right corner, you have a preview of what your camera looks like, and when you add it to the sequencer, you can see that the camera icon is now blue. You've also got the cuts camera. We'll deal with camera cuts later. Right now I need to specifically assign camera actor. Adding a camera is quite convenient, different positions, different angles, and by clicking on the blue icon, the viewport will be readjusted to the view from the camera. Let's add post-process volume. You'll need this for rendering because I'm going to work with lumen settings, which is lighting, and I'm going to increase the quality of these settings. I'll do it specifically for the render. That is, usually it is done at the end, but also most often and initially, professionals immediately set the lumen quality to maximum. Also, I need the infinite extent checkbox because now process volume is applied only in the area of this bounding box, and I need it to be applied to the whole composition. Also, let's go to the render settings, and if your computer allows it, you will need the following settings. This is support hardware ray tracing. In order to apply it, you will have to press restart. After restarting, you will also need to use hardware ray tracing when available. Click yes. Great. As you can see, after restarting, I've got it all messed up. In Unreal Engine, there are settings for how to make the opening at once with all the levels and sequences without even loading the layout, including the console comments. But now I don't want to overload you with information. This lesson is basic for beginners, so you will deal with the rest of the options in the course. So, in order to render, make sure that you have movie render queue. If you don't have it, then type in movie render queue in plugins and enable it. But by default, it should already be there. Also, you will need Apple ProRes Media to render in the movie format. So, after selecting movie render queue, you will see this panel. If you go inside, you'll see the following settings. Let's click Custom Frame Rate. I don't need JPEG sequence. I usually use PNG sequence, but since I enable Apple ProRes, I want to render it in the movie format. Great. Also, you need the following commands: anti-aliasing. To understand what anti-aliasing is, let's go to the project settings and type in anti-aliasing. For example, let's set some other, and you can see what is happening. If I set none, and let's go back to the viewport, don't forget to unclick the camera, as now you have the view from the camera. That is, click on the icon. Now you are out of the camera and can move around the viewport. Now you can see what is going on without anti-aliasing. Now let's turn on anti-aliasing. And you can see that everything is smoother. Okay. Let's go through the settings again. So, you need Apple anti-aliasing and the override anti-aliasing checkbox, because by default it's already there. And you can set temporal sample count up to 8. Also in output, don't forget to make custom frame rate. And the last command you need very much is console variables. Since we included different cheat codes, you will need to add them to the renderer, because Unreal Engine must know what cheat codes we used. So I'll add them accordingly. In Unreal, I remind you that the up arrow on the keyboard will show you all the console commands you have used. So copy them, paste them, click Accept, and also select the path where you want your video to be saved. Great. I also recommend that you save these render settings. You will need them and use them as a template for your next renders. Let's save it. And now let's look. If I go to the render settings, You can see that I have saved our preset, and accordingly, if I delete the render settings and click on preset, click yes, and my settings are all saved, and the path and all the commands, which is very good and very convenient. Well, let's click render. It's always exciting. And don't forget to also select the camera from which to render. So let's click render. This is always very exciting because sometimes you don't have on the render what you had in the sequencer. So sometimes you'll have to change some settings and find what the issue is. Also, if you do not open the file, use VLC player. If even it does not help, such software as DaVinci is free or any other After Effects, Premiere, just drag the file there and look at the render. Let's see if everything is exactly the same as we had in the viewport. And I can see that I can improve our result, and I want to show you the bloom effect. I don't need point light anymore. In order to add bloom, I need the camera settings. I'll click on the camera, and first I'll adjust exposure. Right, exposure, click the checkbox, and select manual. Let's take a look at the view from the camera. Everything is dark now, so I need to adjust exposure compensation. I'm going to set it to 10. That's good. And now, to add bloom effect, I'll type in bloom, turn on intensity, and you can see that I have lens effect, but in this case I don't need them. So type in lens flare intensity and set it to 0. Because I only need the glow effect, let's increase intensity, and you can see that the cube now looks more interesting due to the bloom effect. You can also adjust exposure and experiment with the exposure and bloom settings. Let's go into the emissive material settings and also increase the intensity value. Save it, and now I like it a lot better. Now I think we can move on to the most interesting part of our lesson, specifically motion design. As I mentioned before, motion design has been added to Unreal Engine, and to enable it, I go to Plugins, type in Motion, and you can see Motion Design Experimental. Check the box and click Restart. Once you do that and restart Unreal Engine, you will see a new mode named Motion Design. Go to the right tab and click Motion Design. You will need Operator Stack and the Animators tab. Select the cube and add a wiggle operator. Let's set wiggle to the minimum value. I want to add a little bit of drama. It's like our object is gaining energy. So you've set up wiggle. In order to create an animation in the sequencer, select manual, wiggle is gone. Let's go to frame 48, set a keyframe, and find the settings of wiggle, specifically custom time. Let's make the shake effect last 1 second. I'm going to do custom time animation. Since I have 1 second, I recommend making the time 1 second, but it's up to your discretion. Let's change it to 1. As you have already realized, I'm doing this effect to prepare the viewer before the next animation. Let's click on Actors. If you don't see the settings, go to Motion Design again. So, Actors, select Cloner Actor and click on the composition. As you can see, the default cube is inside the cloner. Let's center the cloner and let's make the height of the cubes match. The default cubes are 100 by 100, and the original cube is also 100 by 100, so everything matches. Let's apply the same emissive material to the cube inside the cloner. And as you can see here, we have the count X and count Y settings. If I increase it, the grid will be much bigger. With spacing, you can increase the distance between the cubes. At this point, I don't need any repetition on the Z-axis. Let's align the cubes again. That's great. Let's also do integer values. And all I need to do now is animate spacing X and spacing Y. Let's set keyframes, and on the first frame, I'll set 0, which means after the shake that I did, my cube will multiply into components. So let's have a look. Let's increase spacing in the last frame, like this. And I think I need to reduce the number of cubes because the front one is now overlapping. So I'm going to make count X 2 and count Y also 2. That's great. Now let's adjust spacing again, and I think this result will be fine. That's good. That's what I need. So, as you can see, now our cloner overlaps the original cube, and I need to make it appear specifically at this time point. So I'm going to use the enable checkbox. I'm going to animate it in 1 frame, and now I'm going to move the cloner animation at that point where I have the shake ending, just by dragging it. And let's see. That's great. It's all working. You can also use spawned option to make the original cube disappear. However, I don't recommend using it because sometimes there are bugs in the render. But you should know about this option. Okay, I will do the actions. Now I want to show you the effectors. In order to apply it, click on the cloner and click Spawn Linked Effector, find it in the outliner. It doesn't work now. Also, if you click somewhere on the viewport, and press G key, you'll see the area of the effector. Let's increase its radius, and as you can see, it begins to affect the position. But now I don't need this effect, so in the Type tab, select Unbound. And let's set offset to 0. In Mode, select Noise Field, and set location strange, let's say, to an integer value of 10. Let's also set 10 in pan, and I see that noise and some movement are automatically applied. Excellent, but I don't need such a strong effect, so I have a great option, magnitude. And initially I will set it to 0 since in this frame I already have the influence of noise, and then I will animate our magnitude. Let's say 0.13. Now frequency can be increased. Let's make it 2. And we have certain noise on position. Great. This is what I need. And I think that somewhere in this frame, I'll select frame 100, literally in 12 frames, the cubes should return. I'll set 0. Here we go. Let's also play around with the motion graphs. I'll select frames, and do not forget to select this option. It is more convenient. I'll click find icons in order to control tangents separately, and the corresponding graph, that is, in the beginning the objects move quickly and then slow down. At the end, I set, let's say at first they will move slowly, and I'll select separate tangents and fast speed at the end. That is, they kind of accelerate, but always check how it looks. If you don't like it, you can still experiment with animation. I think I'm like this graph. Let's go back to the sequencer and see how it looks through the camera. It looks pretty good. And accordingly, in the end, I need the cloner to disappear. So I'll go back to the enabled checkbox, move 1 frame forward and click on it again. That is, the cloner will disappear. Let's now add another cube and make it higher, align location and rotation. something like this. Now I want to make an interesting transition and show you another modifier. So after the cubes come together, I want something else to happen. Well, let's also remove the original box. To do this, I can simply animate its scale. Let's say the scale goes to 0 in one frame. So I'll move the frames by holding down Control and scrolling. You can increase the timeline, and it will be easier for you to move one frame. Accordingly, I'll select Scale, set it to 0, and you see that the cube disappears. So, let's now select the cube and go to the Modifiers tab. I need the Bend modifier. Increase the cuts value to 15 and animate angle. That is, at the moment when the cubes come together, I want something different to happen. Let's set it to -60 and set a keyframe. I think 12 frame will be enough for me. On frame 12, I'll set it to the opposite, that is -60, 60. Excellent. And I want to enhance this effect even more. I want to show you an interesting trick. Select our animation and select ping pong. As you can see, our animation now starts repeating, and I only need 2 frames, which is very convenient. Imagine how to animate all these frames manually. I also want to add rotation, but I need to change the pivot point. To do this, select the Motion Design Outliner, go to Actors, and add Null Actor. Let's center it and drag the cube in Null Actor. Now, as you can see where I had a null object, I rotate it around its axis. This is what I need, which you will understand now. I want to animate rotation from -15 to 15 and make an offset. But first, let's repeat the trick with ping pong. You have already learned. Select the frames and turn on ping pong at the beginning and at the end. And I will shift this animation by half, that is by 6 frames, and now you see that my animation has become even more lively. I will correct the null actor so that the edges at the bottom are not visible, and I will lower it down a little. Great. Well, now I need to make a smooth transition when the cubes come together. I will add plane cut, that is This rectangle will appear as if from the bottom up. Let's go to plane cut. I will correct plane rotation to 360, and as you can see, if I change plane origin, then I have animation. Let's set a frame. That is, at about this moment, my cube starts to appear. So I can move it even lower and make it appear. Let's also move the animation a little so that it's seamless. Let's take a look. Yeah, pretty good. And I've got an interesting transition. I show this animation only to demonstrate the modifiers. Of course, you can use them in a more interesting way. It all depends on your imagination. So, let's look at our animation. It looks good. And I want to show you another interesting modifier. I'll add a spline, actor, go to spline and select one of the points. Select position, and now I want to repeat the band of our figure using spline. Why do I do this now? You will find out literally in 5 minutes. So, I'll select the points and set them in the center. You can select each point separately and change the location separately in the settings. Excellent. I'll move 2 points and select the tangents. When moving the tangents, as you can see, our curve changes. This is what I need. So, approximately adjust the curve, and then I want to select the spline, holding down Alt, select the point, and move to the position you need. Move around the viewport, and note that you always need to be at the end point, and holding down Alt, move the point. You will create a new one and make the spline look nice so that there are correct roundings. Do it by eye. If you see that the line does not look very smooth, you know what to do. Take tangents and find the right position. In this animation, I want the rectangle to fly around the scene a little and then go to the side. I think I'm done with the spline. Now I will just create a rectangle, set mesh size to 3, and set the value to 100 to 100. Let's select an asset for the material and apply it. Adjust rotation and position, and now I'll show you another modifier. Well, first, let's hide the band, select rectangle, go to operator stack, and add the spline sweep modifier. Here I'll select the spline I created, and let's adjust the position. Excellent. Now let's increase the number of steps to 100. And make progress start almost 1, and let's animate it. Set a keyframe. I need to animate to 0. That is, the cube will go the full distance. Excellent. Set the frame, looked at the animation, and you see that the first frame is quite similar to the bend. Good. Now you need to adjust start, scale, and end scale a little. Let's make them 0 initially. This way I will reveal the object, and this way I will make a replacement. Let's set the first frame to 0, and I will have an object revealed in 1 frame. And yes, as you can see, the first frame is 0 and the second frame is 1. Great. Now what I need is I want to make a taper. Let's animate progress and to 0. Thus, I will have an interesting animation, the object flying along the spline. And to make it more beautiful, let's go to the settings of the graphs and select the needed one. In this case, I need progress start. Do not be confused. And click on progress start. Click on the icons to edit the tangents. I want the start to be fast because there will be a replacement of objects in motion design. This is a fairly common technique. The object moves quickly and you do not notice the replacement. So let's animate scale and accordingly the minimum number of frames, and you see that the animation is already acquiring an interesting character. You can also correct the spline since I'm in a different view. You can correct the tangents again. Excellent. Well, something like this. You can also correct the offset between progress start and progress end and find the needed value. For everyone, I think it will be different as you like. Also, in order to make additional offset settings, you can experiment with the graphs or by moving the keyframes. For example, I like this result. You can also adjust scale and so that it happens faster. Our taper was much sharper. And let's see how it looks on camera now. I'll turn on the previous object. And you see that here is a replacement, respectively. The bend needs to be turned off in this frame. Accordingly, this can be done simply by adjusting the scale of the cube. Click. That is, here it should become 0. That is, again, I animated scale from 0 to 1, in this case from 1 to 0, and then the objects were replaced. Great. I think that you can make the animation a little faster so that the moment of replacement looks smoother, like this. Now it is absolutely noticeable. Cool. Well, as I've already said, you can additionally go to the speed graphs or adjust the offset. Let's go to the graphs. I need progress and turn on the tangents. And by changing the settings, you will also be able to control how the offset looks. Accordingly, somewhere in this frame, you can try to adjust the graph, go through the entire timeline, and set up the tangents so that you are satisfied with the result. This is how you can do it both at the beginning and at the end, but I'm quite happy with this result. Great. Let's look at the full animation. I can see that something is happening at the beginning. I have artifacts from bend because when I revealed the object with plane cut, I did not animate the value correctly. Accordingly, let's find where the object is. In this case, it is null actor 2 and cube actor 2. Make sure that it is it. So select the cube. And I need the plane cut setting, namely plane origin. I will reduce the value even more to minus 165, but you can set less or more. Good. I think that here, to make the replacement looks better, I will increase plane origin a little more. Great. Let's save it. So the introduction to motion design is coming to an end. Let's click render. I recommend you do not create anti-aliasing for preview at the beginning. Your render will last much less. Turn off anti-aliasing, press render. And as you can see, I'm not speeding up anything now. My render is as fast as possible. However, I can immediately see some artifacts. For example, my cloner, for some reason, did not appear smoothly, but in one frame. This happens if you use the default viewport. Since you work with motion design, it makes sense to turn on the motion design viewport and be sure to turn on the camera. And let's try again. Click render. And now everything is fine. Excellent. You can see how the render looks in DaVinci or in other software, and I'm satisfied with everything. Congratulations on completing this lesson. As soon as you like the render, you can turn on anti-aliasing again and render again. Thank you all and see you on the course. And let me remind you what awaits you on the course. We will create new environments, learn how to achieve realistic effects, create underwater worlds and deserts, work with fire, and also learn to control the animation even more. Thank you all, and I'm waiting for you on the course. Bye bye.